Have you ever been told just ignore it? In my house, that wasn't just advice, it was a rule we couldn't break. I grew up with my mom and my younger brother in a really nice cookie-cutter suburb. From the outside, we looked like the most boringly normal family you could imagine. But my dad was supposedly a high-level consultant who traveled all the time for work, so it was usually just the three of us. Mom was great, but she had this one specific way of handling stress that defined our entire lives. The ignore it rule was the foundation of our house. It started with small things. If the sink started leaking and flooded the kitchen floor, Mom would just step over the water and say, just ignore it, I'll call someone when I have a minute. But she never did. If a bill collector knocked on the door, we had to sit perfectly still on the floor in the dark until they left. Just ignore it, they have the wrong house, she'd whisper. It was her solution for every single problem. I started noticing things weren't adding up when I hit 16. Dad's car was never in the driveway, but his favorite shoes were always right by the front door. Every morning, Mom would make a cup of coffee and set it on the dining table at his spot, and every evening she'd pour the cold coffee down the sink. I'd ask when he was coming home, and she'd just give me this blank look and say, he's just busy with a new project, honey. Just ignore the empty seat. It got weirder as the months went by. On my birthday, a card would show up with Dad's handwriting, but the postmark was always from our own local post office. I started hearing Mom having full conversations in the master bedroom late at night. I could only hear her voice though. She'd laugh, pause like she was listening to someone, and then say something like, oh, you always say that. One night, I stayed up late and watched her through the cracked door. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, talking to his empty suit laid out on the mattress. I finally had enough and went into his private office while Mom was at the grocery store. I expected to find some deep secret, but the room was completely empty. No desk, no computer, no files. Just a stack of legal papers on the floor. My parents had been divorced for 7 years. My dad hadn't been traveling. He had moved to the other side of the country and started a whole new life before I even finished elementary school. He hadn't sent a card or called in half a decade. Mom had been buying the gifts, writing the cards, and making that coffee every single day just so she wouldn't have to admit to the neighbors or to herself that he had left her. When she came home, I showed her the papers. I didn't yell, I just asked why. She didn't cry or get angry. She just took the papers from my hand, put them back in the folder, and said, I told you to ignore that room, Sam. She went into the kitchen and started making dinner like nothing had happened. That was the moment I realized my childhood wasn't built on stability, it was built on a performance. We weren't a family, we were just props in my mother's refusal to be the woman whose husband left. I moved out a few months later. We still talk, but we don't talk about him, we just ignore it. Have you ever realized your parents were living a total lie just to keep up appearances?